the last week for that music, and Rita Moreno hasn't jumped out yet. This time we'll dismiss the kids to go to Kids Corner. Those of you under 35, you can go Google Rita Moreno. It's an old name. I'm thinking Merv Griffin again from the 70s. So do me a favor, everybody, today. And sometimes something like this happens, and I don't know why. Before I came in here, do me a little favor. And I apologize for having to make this announcement today. And I don't know exactly where things are yet. So here's my thing. If after church, if you have to use the restroom, please don't flush. Thank you. And if you can possibly wait till you get home, please do that too. I don't know that somewhere there's been a little clog somewhere in a pipe, and I don't know where it is. And guess what? I can't chase it down right now. And so I'm just asking you, please. So thank you, and I hate having to do that. What a wonderful way to start a sermon. Wow. But sometimes these things happen, and anyway, so this is the last in our series from Hebrews, and we'll move on. Next week is Thanksgiving week, and the week do something very highly personal next week, and then we go into Advent. It is wonderful to see you this morning. If you're joining us online, and might be your first time or third time, and you have something we can pray for, send us a little message. We'd be happy to pray for you, happy to get in contact with you, and just anyway, any way that we can help, please ask. We would love to get to know you a little bit better. And if you're relatively new here, thanks for coming. Just make yourself at home, which is a weird thing to say after the announcement I just gave about 2 minutes ago. But it's just kind of the way it is. I want us always to keep in mind what's going on behind the scenes of any text that we read. One of the things that happens so often, and it's so frustrating to me, is we act like the Bible literally drifted to us from a cloud, and it doesn't have a historical context. And so we have to keep in mind what's going on. And what's going on in Hebrews is there's a group of believers who have grown very discouraged. And there's been a lot of things happen in their world that really throws them for a loop. They're not happy with some of the big political things they see going on. They're frustrated for their people. They're frustrated for their nation. They're looking around and wondering if anybody has any sense left at all. Sound familiar? All right. And so they've just been taken through some theological things about reasons not to give up. And at the end of a letter, we have a section, and most of the letters in the New Testament, there's a section at the end that's basically, hey, in light of everything I've told you, here's what I want you to do practically. We're at this part of Hebrews. Here's simple day-to-day instructions. And it's just as fresh today as ever. I chose the New Living Translation today just because I kind of like the wording. And so this is Hebrews chapter 13, verses 1 and 6. Keep on loving each other as brothers and sisters, and don't forget to show hospitality to strangers. For some who have done this have entertained angels without realizing it. And remember those in prison as though you were there yourself. Remember also those being mistreated as if you felt their pain in your own bodies. I love that sentence. Give honor to marriage and remain faithful to one another in marriage. God will surely judge people who are immoral and those who commit adultery. Don't love money. Be satisfied with what you have. For God has said, I will never fail you. I will never abandon you. So we can say with confidence, the Lord is my helper, so I will have no fear. What can mere people do to me? This, be satisfied with what you have. Resonating this morning, I was coming up 60 Town Line Road. You know, there's that stoplight where 60 and 45 kind of split off there, and I was coming west, and there was someone in the left lane, and all these years I got that light timed pretty good. And so he was in the left, and I pulled right because I knew about the time I got to it, it would turn green, and I had it timed perfectly. And it turned green, and I went right past that guy in my Corolla, and I was feeling great. And then about 3 seconds later, he came roaring past me, and I saw Tesla on his back bumper, and I went, oh, okay. The first instruction here, just on everyday living, it's still good. The first one is love. Keep on loving each other as brothers and sisters. I saw one translation even repeated the Old Testament line, love your neighbor as yourself. That is always good advice. But see, we live in a world that tells us just something a little bit different. I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, and I think it's bad advice. Our world tells us the key to everything is loving yourself. In fact, there was a hit song about 25 years ago, the greatest love of all is inside of me. No, it's not. Not even close. It tells you if you learn to love yourself, then you can love others. Here's the thing. I'm going back, and this is maybe I'm the only one here. The time in my life when I loved myself more than any other, I was about 17. And here's the thing. I didn't love many other people at that time. If you ask me what time in my life am I most doubtful of myself and love myself the least, and I can honestly say that's today. And I think I got plenty of room to go, but I think I love more now than I did then. There's something about getting outside of yourself where you learn to love. In fact, I will say the problem of love of self is that it's a dead end. It's a cul-de-sac. It leads nowhere. You end up just inward. You don't get outside of your own head. All you do is think about yourself. Our first impulse must always be to love others. We cannot get out of our own way until we love others. This is why marriage is good. This is why family is good. This is why, in fact, they're holy. Because in these places, we learn to love other people. I remember Adam was about 1. And some of you have had this thing happening. You've ever had your little 1-year-old on your lap maybe, and they're right there, and they're playing, and you're just kind of fiddled with them on their lap, and I don't know what you're doing, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, they decide they're going to all of a sudden go stiff. Right here. And instantly the lip puffs out. And I remember that day, I held him out and I said, "Shall take your son." Because my first impulse was to throw him into the next room. Well, it happened again the other day, except this time with a grandchild. And my first impulse then was not to throw them in the other room, so I think I'm getting better. It still hurt. We learn to love when we give and we extend ourselves. The other thing I think we need to do is be open to others. This whole first couple verses, don't forget to show hospitality to strangers. Look how we go through life, especially today. It's different than at any other time. We go through life. We have these things in our pocket. We turn them on. We have my music, my sights, my interests, my everything. And even have people, we see pictures, man dies falling through sewer grate because they were looking at their phone. A year or two ago, someone, to get a better angle on a selfie, backed off into the Grand Canyon. Even the things we look at are geared to ourselves. If I were to go on my computer and turn on YouTube, it's amazing how much I found this site. I turn it on, and it gives me options on Ohio State football highlights, reaction to Ohio State. Then over here, there'll be a World War I symposium on the Battle of the Somme. And I think it's amazing that I found this site that's so in tune to me. You mean if you turn on YouTube, that's not what's going to come up? And we get ingrained in our own little things, and we never get outside. Even when we try to look out, our devices that we love pull us back in to just the things that we love. I think this is one of the hidden reasons why we seem to be so divided and locked in our tribes right now. Some of us remember back when, and I'm going to sound like the old guy that yells at squirrels, and I still do that sometimes, but where there was 3 channels. And we'd turn on the radio station in our town, and you'd hear everything from Conway Twitty to Earth, Wind, and Fire. No more. You can still get those, but it's the station that just plays Conway Twitty. And it's the station that just plays Earth, Wind, and Fire. And we go now to our little places on the internet who does radio, and we have Earth, Wind, and Fire radio, and then they'll play that and everything that sounds like that. So what do we do intentionally to interact with others? We even have this phrase right now, and even if I say it, someone will get upset with me, but why don't you just hang on with me just for a second? We go through things teaching people this thing called stranger danger. Except by an overwhelming margin, not just barely, an overwhelming margin. The people who will hurt us, assault us, kill us are always people that we know. The most dangerous person to a child's life is someone that lives in the home. And so we almost have this reflexive, if it's a strange face, must not interact at all. Must stay right in my little locked in. I can't interact with strangers. And in a way, there's more of us than there's ever been before. We have more than we've ever had before. And we are so committed to isolating from each other than we ever have been before. And the thing is, if I've ever been a flat tire on the edge of the road, I need jumped in a parking lot, the good jump. Winter, the battery's dead, not the other kind, where they're going to take my money. The people that have always helped me have been strangers. We need to go through life intentionally aware of people around us. We should go through life with our antenna up to what's going on around us. It says also, remember those in prison. Remember those who are being mistreated. We should be aware of suffering. We should be people that meet needs. Think of how often people need a friend, a mentor, a kind word, just a help. A few months ago, I can't remember what month it was summer. I wasn't even thinking about what I was doing. Maybe you've done what I've done. I had these pants on, tan pants. And I had a red short sleeve shirt on with it. And I walked into Target to buy something. That was the most annoying 25 minutes of my life. But what if we became people who just took that upon ourselves? I could have been ornery. I could have told people that the elevator was in the back of the store and all that kind of stuff and had people running everywhere. I didn't do that. Because we live in a world where people sometimes need a place to turn. They just need a safe harbor. They know someone's there to just be a place of protection and safety. Here's the thing. I'd love to tell you differently, but every time we reach out to someone else, it is a risk. You might be turned away. You might be ignored. You might be betrayed. You might be a lot of things. You may even end up crucified. But that's our model. And we're commanded to be like Jesus. So the first thing we're to do in our practical lives just to make a difference is to be aware of others and to love. And that sentence, remember those who are being mistreated as if you felt their pain in your own body. That's more than just aware. That's empathy. Second thing, and I should have jumped ahead. I've fallen asleep up here. The second thing is, what if we live life with a true sense of integrity? It's interesting to me that right away it goes after, right after in chapter 12 last week about letting no bitterness rise up amongst you. Now it says, marriage should be honored by all and the marriage bed be kept pure. It's interesting how quickly the author turns to that area of life after this. Because I think the Bible is not some Pollyanna-ish book. It realizes the real danger and power of sex and lust that happens in our world. There's historical reasons. It's interesting to me. You would go back into the ancient world, and the ancient world was no place that you'd want to live. Because the guy with the biggest army, the guy who was the king, just rode into town, killed who he wanted, and kept whatever women he wanted. And you go, wait a minute, but I would have disagreed with that. That's cute. That wouldn't have made a difference back then. And so what happened is slowly you'd have these power imbalances and slavery and wanton disregard for people. And so the Bible began to put up guardrails. And it said a husband should love his wife. And began to create space. There'd be a seventh day. The seventh day would be holy. Not the day you'd work, the day you'd hang out with family. That's the day that was holy. And all of a sudden, marriage and love and sacrifice and home became ideals and things we should aspire to. And now we stand at the end of a 50-year attempt to tear down all those guardrails. We consider those guardrails oppression, patriarchal, and a bunch of other words. And I think we've forgotten the world as it existed before then. There are societal reasons. I saw this sentence this week. It's been echoing in my head, and I think it's exactly right. It said this, sexual expression and love, rightly channeled, can build civilizations. Left unrestrained, those same desires will burn down the civilizations that was created. There's a society, we live in a world where these things are no longer valued. Home's no longer valued. Family's no longer valued. I hate to be specific like this, but for all human history, the birth of a child, the next generation, was viewed as a reason to celebrate. We put these safeguards in so we could raise the next generation. Now, the actual, the creation of a life at the end of sex is now viewed as the main problem. And we wonder why society decays. When we start to not value family, the world is about to enter some strange new territory. Probably entered it 10 years ago. I know that you don't hear anything about this from the news media. Well, about 10 years ago, a new trend started. Because I know all you hear about is the opposite. What started about 10 years ago in the world population began for the first time to decline. For the first time since the bubonic plague. And for all the problems of a growing population, you haven't seen anything until you've seen the problems of a population that's collapsing. How do you pay for medical care? How do you pay for a lot of different things if you don't have as many coming up as you do that's already there? But that's the inevitable result of what happens when we look and think that's a problem. The next generation's a problem. Children are a problem. Babies are a problem. That's the inevitable result. There's also personal reasons. I think there's a personal cost when we don't value the home and don't value fidelity. A hardened heart. I think also one of the things, if we take loving ourselves to the inevitable end of the logical end, it doesn't have room for the sacrifice that's necessary when you decide to bring a next generation into a world. It also doesn't leave room for the growth and the blessing and the greatness that happens when you extend yourself for the next generation that comes into the world. There's no talk of avoiding the marriage bed in our culture now. We've kind of lost this. There's no marriage bed, just a bed. We even go to marriages, we joke about how once married, the bed goes away. That's not true by any study. And then we think the Bible is repressive. And we fail to look at the world around us and the stuff that's happening. This is a larger call to integrity here. Integrity, that's a cute word. It's an old word that we don't hear much anymore. Integrity goes beyond honesty. Integrity goes to complete transparency. Integrity goes to consistency. Integrity goes to dependability. Integrity goes to someone who builds bridges all the time and is not concerned with tearing them down. Integrity has a collective weight. There are days I think we all feel the weight. There are days I feel the weight. I see someone publicly fail in a way that they shouldn't. I see someone, and it could be a Catholic priest, it could be the head of a megachurch somewhere, and something happens, and that failure happens, and I sigh, because I go, what does that have to do with you? You're not Catholic, you don't do that. It doesn't matter. I carry that weight. Because that just creates baggage that I have to walk through when I interact with someone. When every time a father decides, or any spouse decides to just abandon marital commitments, that makes it tougher for everybody. Even now, you hear every single day, you hear, half of marriages fail. That is not true. It has never, ever been true. That is a lie. Divorce rate peaked around 1981 or 82 at about 38 or 39%. We're now below 30. Considerably below 30. Let me explain how this works. There are 8 women in Boca Raton, Florida. They play bridge every Tuesday morning. And they meet together for bridge. They've all been married 50 plus years. They're all talking. There are 8 people around a table playing bridge. 8 marriages. How many divorces? 0. What's the divorce rate? 0. Wonderful. Well, old Gladys, she got old. She passed away. And who joins in the bridge club? Oh, this new person down. You've heard of her? Elizabeth Taylor. So she decides she'll join in the bridge club, and they're all playing bridge. You still have 8 women. How many divorces? 8. The divorce rate's not 100%. Only 1 has been divorced. But the reason why I say that is I think you're drilled into that to show, oh, it's okay, it's easy, yeah, don't even try it. I know sometimes there are even people today that don't even want to walk down that aisle because they think it's not possible, or they think they've seen someone else fail. And they're passing up an opportunity like no other opportunity. A lifelong, stable, mutually beneficial relationship, sacrificial, self-giving, and loving. When we see things like this, these failures, it makes our life harder as a person, it makes our life harder as a parent, it makes our life harder as a spouse. Sometimes it makes our life harder as a friend. So live life with integrity. 2 weeks ago, I was standing in front of a group. These are people who are going into ordination in the next couple years. And I said the following sentence, and I said it to them, but I think it's good for everybody. I told them, I said, you know what? You are about to start a life of ordination, of committed service to the church, and sometimes your faithfulness and your integrity will not be noticed nor rewarded by the church that you serve. Have integrity anyway. Be faithful anyway. There will be times in life you are not noticed, you are not rewarded, you're not patted on the back for having integrity, for having love, for having service, for having devotion. Do it anyway. Because the Bible says there's this reward at the end. And we're not living for now, we're living for then. Last thing it talks about is having this heart of gratitude. It says, keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have. There's power in being grateful. We waste so much energy looking at what someone else has or what someone else does. I remember 9th grade algebra class. There's 3 junior highs in my hometown, all funneled to the high school. And here it is, 9th grade, algebra. I'm sitting to this kid named John Shesky. John Shesky was the class clown. I can't believe the stuff that he got away with. There was a class when he got out of his seat to sharpen his pencil. The teacher would just be, often Mr. Cox would sit up there and he'd have his back to the class and he would just be doing this problem and you never knew when he was going to turn around. Sometimes he'd be there for 10 minutes, never turning around. Sometimes it'd be 45 seconds. Well, John got up and I stuck my foot out like I was going to trip him. I pulled it back beforehand, just to be funny. Well, John took that time to do a swan dive over my foot onto the floor. He then army crawled his way across the floor to the pencil sharpener, drug himself up, sharpened his pencil, only to collapse back to the floor again. To army crawl all the way right behind the teacher, back down the aisle, and then he got up, sat in his chair, and he looked at me and went. And I thought, that is so cool. I need to do stuff like that. That would be great, except something in my head went off and saying, if I did it, I'd get caught. So I never did. But we look at what other people have. We look at what a talent someone else has. We look at something that they possess, and we look at them and go, man, I wish I was like them, or I wish I had what they had. And the thing is, we spend so much time looking at someone else, and when we do that, we miss the unique blessings that are part of our lives. And we all have some. Their journey is their journey. Their stuff is their stuff. Their talent is their talent. You can't switch places. Don't try. We should all spend purposeful time being grateful. That's why the board is there. Each week it's there to write something you're thankful for. And just put it on as you're leaving the day. You can go write something. When you come in, you can write something as a reminder of what we're thankful for. Last night I went to Adams and had dinner with them and played on the floor with my grandson who's in the hospital last week. And he's home and doing great. Thank you for, praying for him and all this kind of thing. I'm thankful for relationship with kids, and I'm thankful for relationship with grandkids, and I'm thankful for a whole host of things. See, if we struggle with negativity, and a lot of people struggle with negativity, that means you should purposefully spend more time being thankful. Not as an excuse to do it less. See, gratitude is filling. Gratitude guards our hearts. Gratitude is what keeps us moving. A lack of gratitude freezes us in place. A lack of gratitude means bitterness is the problem from last week. And if we become bitter, then it short circuits everything that we're part of. We have so much. We have so many of our needs met. And even though more than any other place, in any other time, in any place in history, we have demonstrably more things. And if the stats are true at all, we struggle more with depression and feelings of worth and feelings of value than any other place on earth. Which should tell us that the amount of stuff doesn't really get down to here. It's amazing how we'll get later in life and the house that we want, and we'll still talk about that little one-bedroom apartment as the good old days. You know, when you were just married, the apartment with the roaches and the mouse problem, and we call it the good old days. Because stuff does not fill us. Stuff does not give us what we think it does. Which is why it says, do not love money. It doesn't say no money. It says don't love money. I have a few friends who have quite a bit of money. If I introduced you to them, you wouldn't know that. They would just seem like any other person. The very few, the very truly wealthy people that I know don't love money. That's not why they have money. It could be they had a really good idea. And someone thought, that's a great idea. My company will buy that idea. Someone said, I just love this business. So he built a business, and he just liked doing it. He was behind, he provided that service, provided that business. The business grew, it met a need. Came time for him to retire. He was shocked at what someone was willing to pay him for that business. They didn't get that way because they desired money. They loved this other thing. I've met a few poor people, very poor people, who did love money. And sometimes one of the things that harms us is the love of money. It actually prevents it from happening. This is true. This was Friday. I was down at the Shell station, right here, at the end of the road. That Shell on the corner. I walked in, there was only one person at the cashier. By the time I got up, I was number 4 in line, and pretty soon there was 2 people behind me. And I wondered, and I started listening to what was going on. This is a true story. There was a woman at the cash register down there. She bought, I kid you not, $73 of lottery tickets. $73 of lottery tickets. I guarantee you she will be poor as time goes on. This is why this verse tells us be content and have joy. I like be content. There's blessing with what we have. There's blessing in some of the smallest areas of life. There's lots of reasons. Why should I be content with what I have? Why should I be content when I don't have much? This next verse, because God has said, never will I leave you and never will I forsake you. Never. That's the first part. The reason why we can be content is if we don't have a whole lot of stuff, is because God has said, never will I leave you and never will I forsake you. And then the second part is this. So I can say with confidence, I will not be afraid because of that. What can man do to me? I'm going back to Hebrews now in the 1st century. This was written in between 2 very difficult times. It was not too far after Nero had just departed. And what they had seen was thousands of believers who were killed. Because they said, maybe Caesar isn't Lord. Maybe someone else is. And they saw these people. These people weren't jumping up and down saying, please kill me, please kill me, please kill me. But when attention was turned on them and they were put in that situation, they would simply saying, I can't say Caesar is Lord. Because I know Jesus is Lord. Well, if you don't quit saying that, we're going to kill you. And they would say, because Jesus is Lord, the thing that you threaten me with that you think will end my life, I'm looking at you and saying it won't. So you cannot do the thing that you think you can do to me. You think you're ending my life. You think you're ending my existence. You think you're writing the last chapter. You're not doing any of those things. I would rather live. I'd rather have more time with my family. But if that's not the end, the Lord is my helper. What can man do to me? You know, still good advice today. We got to love other people. We have to maintain integrity, keep our homes this place of fidelity and safety and blessing and grace, and live our life with gratitude. I'm grateful for a lot of things, and I'm grateful for silly things. I really am. I'm really grateful for silly things. I have a box in my closet. It's a wood box. It's about this big. I found it in Minocqua, Wisconsin. I don't even know what the box was originally for. If I showed, maybe you would know. But all I know now, it's a perfect size box to put in about 150 baseball cards. And I have some old baseball cards that I like my old baseball cards. Sometimes they make me smile. Sometimes my mind goes back to a day. I have a bad habit. My habit is, you can open up a drawer in my dresser, my t-shirt drawer, and you can pretty much tell where I've been on vacation for the last 25 years. You can see Acadia National Park. You can see Grand Teton National Park. You can see Glacier National Park. You can see all those places. And it's not the t-shirt that I really care about. Is when I put on the t-shirt, I see what's on it, and it makes me smile. Not because it's a t-shirt, but because I have a memory. I have a memory of a day. I have a memory of a hike. I have a memory of something I've done. That'll be a focal point of next week's sermon. And it just makes me smile. I'm grateful. If we don't have gratitude, life can get rough. Gratitude is like a shock absorber. It's like a cushion for the hard times. I wish you a life of love. I wish you a life of faithfulness. And I wish you an overwhelming spirit of gratitude for your journey along the way.